Sometimes at this time of year, it can be really hard to look ahead to spring and start to feel excited for it because it's still so gloomy outside, it's so cold, it still gets dark quite early, and it just feels like spring is a million miles away. So when we're talking about Imbolc, sometimes it's hard to really feel it properly and feel the stirrings of the beginning of spring. Typically celebrated on the 1st or 2nd of February. At this time of year, January has barely even said farewell. There's still frost clinging to the leaves. There's a stillness in the air, and there's very much a sense that winter is still here. So in this video, I wanted to talk about the origins of Imbolc to give a little bit more context on why this is the beginning of looking ahead to the spring. Some folklore around the festival and the goddess Bridget, and then some ideas of ways that you can celebrate. And I do have some other videos about Imbolc as well, but I thought in this one I would do more of a sit down talky about the origins and things like that. So although these months and the cold can feel unending, we have actually passed the winter solstice, so the days are getting longer even if it doesn't feel like it. And there is a stirring of spring, a very slight stirring. This is the time that marks the midway point between winter solstice and the spring equinox. And if we want to look at why it's even celebrated at this time of year, we've got to look back to the roots in Celtic Irish tradition. So Imbolc is thought to derive from imbolg, which means in the belly, and this is referring to the lambing season and the sheep starting to have their babies in their belly at this time of the year. The earliest mentions that we can find of Imbolc are in 10th century literature, and they refer to ewe's milk. So there's a big sort of correlation here between sheep and milk and lactation and fertility, and things starting to kind of get going again, even if it's not full on spring like we're expecting. It's also a time that is deeply tied in with Bridget, the goddess Bridget, and now Saint Bridget, Christianized in the modern day, which I will get into in a little bit. But that is basically where it originally came from. And then the reason that it's in the modern pagan wheel of the year is essentially down to the modern calendars, in particular Wicca creating the wheel of the year and looking for pagan festivals in various tradition. So that's the reason we have Imbolc at this time of the year. So even though it can feel a little bit dark and gloomy and not really springtime, that is what we're thinking about, is the beginning of the lambing season. Sometimes it's easier to think about a festival or a celebration in terms of themes and symbols, so I'm just going to give you a couple of those to help you kind of visualize what this time of the year is all about. So fire and light is a big theme of this time of year, so anything from candles to bonfires, the hearth, whatever it is. And the sun often is represented through fire, the warmth, the heat and the life of the sun, which is slowly coming back to us and is going to be bringing us the springtime. Milk and dairy is also a theme of this time of the year. So I mentioned ewe's milk, and we're talking about the lambing season and all things to do with that at this time of the year. A symbol of Imbolc that I always think of is very, very early blooms, so snowdrops or maybe crocus, if there are any very, very early spring flowers that are starting to come out. And you might see people weave a Bridgets Cross. I'll put a picture here, and this is also a symbol of this time of the year from Ireland. It's something that is made to honour usually Saint Bridget, but you can do it in honour of the goddess Bridget or just to celebrate this time of year in general. So to learn more about Bridget and how she kind of is involved in Imbolc, we have to look back through Celtic mythology and Irish folklore, and Bridget is a member of the Tuatha De Danann, who are said to be the race of supernatural gods and goddesses who inhabited Ireland before humans came along. Her name is thought to derive from the Old Irish, meaning strength and power, so that's a key aspect of her personality. There is an 11th century compilation of Irish texts which talks about Bridget, and it says that she is the daughter of Dagda, who is the good god of abundance and leadership, and she's often depicted as a triple goddess and embodies the poet, the healer and the smith, and those are her 3 aspects. There is a text called the Second Battle of Moytura, and Bridget is accredited for coming up with the invention of keening, which I thought was very interesting. And keening, if you don't know, is like a type of mournful wailing, and it became a tradition, or like part of the culture of like women who would keen after death. And it's a really interesting sort of aspect of culture, but she apparently invented the tradition of keening after her son was killed in a battle. So because of the different aspects of her, she's often associated with creativity. So that's really potent for this time of year, because this is, you know, we're starting to get things going again, that fertile creative energy. She's also associated with the hearth and warmth. But then on the flip side, she's also associated with water, and there are many wells across Ireland that are dedicated to Saint Bridget. So as with all things in pagan tradition, over the years Bridget was Christianized, and she was sort of combined with a saint. So there are different accounts of who Bridget could be. Most would say that she is Bridget of Kildare, who is believed to have lived in the 5th century. Saint Bridget was associated with healing, generosity and the sacred flame, and the abbey in which she lived was said to have this perpetual flame that would never go out. So they kind of got smushed together, and now in Ireland many people still celebrate St. Bridget's Day, so they might make a Bridget's Cross, or go to a holy well, or go to church or something like that. And there's also just big festivals, so there might be like parades in the street, or music or entertainment, or just things to kind of celebrate St. Bridget. And I think it's really easy to just have your own perspective on it and go to these things and celebrate these things in the same way, but obviously you don't have to do it for the saint, you can do it for Saint Bridget, or just this time of year in general. So then I just wanted to share some ways that you can celebrate Imbolc in the modern day, because that is what I'm all about on this channel. It's looking back at like history, traditions, and thinking, okay, how is this relevant for us? How should we celebrate this, and why would we want to do this? So for me, I love connecting with the seasonal cycles of the year, because it just helps you find that sense of wonder and connectedness with everything. So when you're really focusing on the seasonal shifts, I feel like you're a lot more appreciative of nature, the outside world, all the little changes that are going on outside. It helps you feel that you're in this cyclical dance with nature, and I think it's really nice. So that's the reason I like to do it. So there's a few different ways that you might want to celebrate, and as I said, I'll put some links in the description of my other Imbolc videos so you can see what I've done in the past. But one of the ways that you could celebrate is very, very simple, and it's literally to just light some kind of flame. We'll call it a flame of inspiration, so the flame of creativity and inspiration. So Imbolc is a festival of fire, and Bridget is associated with fire, and it's to do with strength and the sun and warmth and light. So you could literally just light a candle, and that could be your little Imbolc celebration. You could light a fire or a bonfire, or you could do some kind of ritual with the flame. So you could put something in the flame that you want to release and burn it in the fire, something like that. But just a small, simple way to honour Imbolc and Bridget at this time of year. Another thing that you could do is make a Bridgets Cross, and I like doing crafty stuff, so I did do this last year when I was in Ireland, and this was a lot of fun. Where my mum lives, she lives in the middle of nowhere in this cottage in Ireland, and she has so many rushes. Ireland is very wet ground, it's like a big problem actually. So she's been trying to heal the land as much as she can. She's done really well so far. She's planted like thousands of trees, it's amazing, but she's still got a lot of rushes. So we went out there, we chopped loads of rushes, and we made Bridget's Cross, and we literally just followed tutorial on YouTube. And it's a really nice thing to do by yourself or with someone, and just like a nice little thing that you can put on the wall just to celebrate the season, and every time you think of it you're reminded of this time of year as well. So Imbolc is a time of growth and pushing forward, so I think it's really nice to have a little bit of a spring clean or a cleanse, and you can do this in a practical way or a spiritual way or both. So a lot of people like to do a spring clean, and I think it's really nice to have a declutter of possessions and have like a deep clean in those places that you kind of just neglect, and just do the practical side of it. But also you could do a bit of like a spiritual cleanse of the home, so like open the doors and windows, like let that cold air in just for a minute. You could do things like creating a water infused with herbs that you could wash the door frames with, wash the windows with. Same for mopping the floor, infused with some herbs that kind of represent the things that you want to bring into the home, so like lavender or sage, these kind of things. Or you could do a smoke cleanse as well, so you might have some herbs bundled up into a smudge stick or something like that, and you can do your own version of like a little smoke cleanse in the home. Food is a central part of seasonal celebrations in general, so this can be just another great time and a great excuse to make something special or get people together to enjoy some food together. So at this time of the year you can look for what is seasonal. Dairy is a big part of this, so you could use dairy or plant-based alternatives and do some kind of baking. That would be nice, or have some kind of special Imbolc meal together with friends or family, and just get together and really celebrate the season. You might want to make like a loaf of bread or oatcakes, whatever it is, just something really nice. If you watch this channel, then you'll know one of my favourite things that I will always recommend is to take a really reflective and mindful walk of the land outside and look for signs of the change in season. So where I live, it's quite far up north, so sometimes there's not much going on at this time of year, but just get out there anyway and have a look. Can you see maybe the first little bulbs of snowdrops starting to push up? Are there tiny little buds appearing where there weren't before? Are the birds getting a little bit noisier? You know, all these types of things. So that's what I like to do, is just go for a walk and just really reflect on the change in seasons. Don't get distracted with podcasts and chit chat and stuff. You can do that anytime, but this is the time for a really reflective walk where you're really focusing on the seasonal shifts and the different things that you can spot in nature. You could also make a little altar space, so this could be like a full-on altar, or it could just be like a little tiny space on a shelf or something, and thinking about the signs and the symbols of the season. So you could have little spring bulbs on there, snowdrops, crocus, you could have candles, you could have maybe a poem that you wrote and propped up against something. You could have I don't know, little ornaments of sheep or something, whatever it is. Get creative with it, craft something, and just make a little seasonal space in the home that gets refreshed every time there's a new season. It's a really nice way to just feel good about the time of year that you're in, rather than kind of wishing it away. And then the final thing that I would suggest is maybe doing something in mind of Bridget. So she is very strongly associated with creativity, so this can be a really good time of the year to start getting going again. We've had the deep winter for dreaming and reflecting, and now with Imbolc things are slowly starting to come back to life, so you might want to as well. So you might want to do a painting or a drawing, or write a poem or a story, or craft something, whatever it is. Just get creative, and no one ever has to see it. It doesn't have to be good, you don't have to put it online, it can be terrible, it's fine, but just whatever you can do to lean into your creativity. So there you have it. Those are my recommendations for Imbolc, along with some folklore and history as well, to give you a little bit of background on where it all came from. I will be putting a February almanac on my Patreon. It's a 10-page almanac, which is basically a guide to February. It has more info about Bridget and Imbolc, and it has a bucket list of ideas that you can do to feel good about the season and just really enjoy the month of February, which can be hard sometimes. It's got recipes, rituals, all that kind of stuff. So if you want to join us on Patreon, I will put the link in the description. And thank you so much for watching. I will see you in the next video.